Right, morning campers. We've got Julian Roberts Consulting on, or Julian Roberts from Julian Roberts Consulting today, and we're going to be learning a little bit about your business, kind of what you do and the kind of focus, your ideal kind of customer avatars or whatever, that sort of stuff, and then really delving into kind of what your long-term plans are. So tell us a little bit about the business. Imagine we're going up in the Eiffel Tower or something like that. So you got a few minutes. We're not a 60-second elevator.
It's not the 30 seconds,
Maybe like kind of your journey to this, kind of how you get your customers, what you do, that sort of thing.
Journey
what you
to
provide.
where I got to.
Just a little bit about the business. Really.
Sure. So 20 years in the corporate world. I used to sell food to people like Tesco's, Sainsbury's. So worked for people like Heinz, Yoplait. So led, developed, and worked with sales teams. And biggest team I worked with had 25 in the team. Yoplait was a sort of £200 million business. So that's what I love doing with teams. Loved all that, loved the strategy, loved getting new products into Tesco and all the other retailers. And then my last role, I had a toxic environment, so to speak.
Okay.
That I won't go into too much detail, but it sapped the life out of me.
Yeah.
But it made me think, because those sort of moments make you think in life, don't they? And at the same time, my wife and I were looking to foster as well. And so I was looking to sort of get some more flexibility with what I did rather than sort of working for somebody. So I jumped ship, initially not knowing what to do. So I did a little bit of interim stuff, working with other sort of food retailers, manufacturers. And then as I started to think through what am I going to do sort of long term with all this, this was 8-9 years ago. I look back at my career, and as much as I loved sales, I loved strategy, I loved developing ways of getting into sort of new markets and things like that. It was the people side that I really loved. And I had this ability to spot talent, but also unlock talent. And I thought, well, that's like a coach. And so basically I retrained as an executive coach and done all sorts of training, done NLP, done team coaching, did a master's in psychology. And therefore I just immersed myself in the world of coaching, developing people. And what I've done is I do lots of one-to-one stuff, and I really enjoyed that. But I started to miss teams because I've been working in teams, and I thought, and so I then started not pivoting myself. I just expanded my offering to get involved with teams, and now I have a real passion, desire to really help teams become alive, do great things. Particularly on the sense of resilience as well. I have a real passion about building resilience in teams, helping teams develop strategies to overcome sort of failure, change, and uncertainty that we all face. So I do a lot of that. I work with teams. I worked with 22 teams last year, which was brilliant. In some it's just one day. Sometimes it's over 6 months. It varies.
And the team size is what varies presumably.
My goodness, it can vary from a team of 6 or 7 through to a team of 40. Yeah. So it varies on that. And so I just love that whole facilitating, workshopping, team coaching a team on a day, and then doing stuff in between that, and helping them just become more collaborative, better communication, helping them overcome some of the barriers they may have of being able to speak out and share, almost that psychological safety sort of stuff. And it's just with teams, it just takes a little bit longer because obviously you got a number of people to work with. But I absolutely love it. I'm really passionate about teams, and so much so I'm now working with another coach, and we've now created a team coaching diploma to help other coaches become team coaches. And it's been accredited with the Association for Coaching, and we kicked that off in end of February this year. So, yeah. Lots going on there.
Going on,
Yes, lots going on.
So, how long have you been doing that for?
8 years. Yeah.
8 years, okay.
Yeah.
So a fair little while then. So the journey, so you went off to uni, obviously got your degree and retrained as that, and then 8 years in. So how did you go about getting like your first customer and things like that?
Oh, yeah.
Where did that come from?
Well,
I find that quite interesting.
Well, no, it is. You always think, I put it out on, a flag up there and people all flock.
Yeah. I built a website. Where are they?
Well, exactly. I tell people on LinkedIn, happens. Do you know, I think my first client came through is my current network, as in people I'd worked with. In fact, it was somebody I'd worked with many years ago, And I think I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn, as you do. This was 7 or 8 years ago when that was probably a novel thing to reach out on LinkedIn. Now we're inundated with reach out.
It's almost like email spam sometimes.
Oh, it is.
Isn't
It is. You wake up and thinking there's like 20 people email me. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And I think it was somebody I'd worked with, somebody in HR years ago. And I said I transitioned to being a coach. And he said, we could do a couple of senior executives needed some support. And so that was my first clients, as it were, and it was very exciting.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as easy as that. It took a while to get going.
Yeah. So on one of your questions you put here on what does your day-to-day look like, you've obviously mentioned about a lot of it's over Zoom or Teams or some sort of video. Other ones are available.
Yeah.
So when you're teaching in Teams, presumably that is in person rather than...
It is now, yeah. Oh, yeah,
okay.
I mean, it's predominantly in person, yeah. So.
Yeah, and you hire like a hall or a hotel venue or something.
It varies,
like that,
So it might be the premises of the clients.
Yeah.
We might be a hotel, whatever it is, various things. So that's when I travel. Last year I was in Glasgow, I was in Wales, I was in Peterborough. I was all over the place.
Yeah.
So I travel a lot with it where the teams are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, question then: what was the young version of you like? That kind of inquisitive 12 to maybe like 18, 19-year-old. What was the young Julian?
The young Julian. I was incredibly quiet, shy. I was a little bit geeky. I was into computers. Yeah. I was in the area, probably a little bit older than you, probably much more older than you. I had a Commodore 64. And I was in my bedroom a lot creating computer games.
I do remember the Commodore 64, but I was a child.
Yeah.
I remember not being allowed to touch it because it was expensive.
Yeah, so I had one of those, and I remember creating my first computer game. And I also created this device and this program to help you reset the computer. If it crashed, you put this little thing, you press a button, and then you have this software to recover what you just lost. And me and my brother, we put it into a magazine. We sold a few of those. So that was my first. Well, we've done other enterprises as a child as well. But that was my, I suppose, geeky self. And at that point, I was into science. I did a science degree. I did a pathology degree, and wanted to be a scene crime officer. So going to sort of all that sort of pathology, forensic stuff. Inspired by a program called Quincy, which you might not have heard of. It was all about sort of almost CSI type of stuff. Before it became trendy, but went to university, did all that, and got slightly numbed by working with test tubes and labs. Just wasn't for me. I'm more of a people person, really, as I realised as I got older. But that was my teenage self.
It's funny how when the things you are when you're young or whatever, they kind of change when you're older. I think you're quiet and a bit introvert, and then the coaching stuff is a people-based thing, so you've got to be outgoing. We have quite a few people on who are like that. Like when they're young, they're like they're kind of quite different to how they are now. And a lot of people with like dyslexia or some learning difficulty, and then they find it's like it holds them back, and then they magically get to like adulthood and they figure out the magic formula for coping with dyslexia or whatever, or they might be really super good at maths but rubbish at English and spelling and writing or whatever, and then they figure out that actually that's like your superpower, so concentrate on that and deal with that. It's funny how you kind of sort of reverses a bit sometimes. I don't know the psychology. Obviously, you're the one with the degree of that as you go through. But I notice a pattern on probably 50% of the podcast is like a journey of a switch, if you like.
Well, I think people realise they can, instead of seeing it as a negative, whatever they were, there is a superpower, or they learn strategies to develop and overcome the world they're exploring. And I know, even though my geeky sort of sciencey, also computer nerdy when I was younger, nowadays I embrace things like AI really quickly. I'm quite good at working out stuff on a computer. I'm not like an IT expert, but I can sort of navigate stuff. I feel very comfortable with that. And it's interesting. That's my sort of teenage playing around, inquisitive, being curious about things, but I want to do it as a job. It's just that I'm quite comfortable with that, and I can work things out. And my wife often says, "This is not working," and I can sort of navigate it out.
It's a kind of process-driven thought thing, isn't it? Like a piece of technology, you know, it's only going to be one of 6 moving parts to fix this thing, and you just process of elimination.
Absolutely.
Cognitive thinking or something. I don't know quite what the right words are. Someone will probably put them down in the comments or something. But so I don't know. I just find that quite interesting. That's all, really. So onto the business then. So obviously, primarily it's kind of executive and a bit of team coaching.
Well, it's probably more team than is what I do predominantly.
And in terms of like income and peaks and troughs and stuff like that, I guess it strikes me like one of these businesses where you might have a few retainers, but then you have a few one-offs, so you get kind of like good months and then less good months. Is that a fair synopsis of it? Or
it varies. Yes. There is
peaks and roller coasters.
I mean, I find interestingly summer is a quiet time for me, and I take the opportunity for that because people they're all busy, they don't want to see me, I'm not involved in anything. And Christmas means I take 2 or 3 weeks off at Christmas time. Because December comes very quiet. Often I'm either working with a team over anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and so that's quite a nice sort of period of time. And so I don't need that many teams to work with because that takes quite a lot of time out of me. And then there is obviously the one-off stuff. People say, can you come and do a strategy day for us, help us get some clarity on some priorities, or we've got some challenges with this team on communication. Can you do something on communication? So I might just do a one-day workshop. Although I often think some people think I can work miracles in a day. You know, people have been working with this team for years and not worked, and they think I can come along in one day and sort it out. But I do lots of
it's
one days.
Well embedded, some of the problems, isn't it?
It is. But I can if I work with a team over a period of time, I can surface an awful lot. And my approach is, I don't come as the expert at all. I'm there to facilitate. I'm there to challenge and unpick and get people talking, and I observe things and obviously notice things that perhaps people are not noticing before. I'm quite sort of in a nice way getting people to come forward with things and get to a place where they start working better as a team. And so people tend to have a good experience on the day of that learning. I'm not just there PowerPointing at them. I might do a little bit of education along the way because people need to understand new things. But, you know, I'm working with adults. Adults generally know things. You know, I'm teaching children here. I might teach them some new concepts, you know, in terms of how to do things, how to interact, why that person's doing that or why that's going there, or why, you know, having a clarity of purpose is helpful for a team, how that helps you in times of difficulty and things like that, and how to build in sort of resilient processes. I might sort of teach on that, but I tend to get them to sort of bring it to them because they've got to bring it into their own context, haven't they? You know, you've got teams, and definitely. You know, you want somebody coming in telling you what to do.
Everyone learns differently, don't they? Like one concept to somebody is not understandable, and another concept to someone is. I mean, like Hayley, my PA, we put these like coded lock boxes up, and I said, "Oh, it's brilliant, right? We'll put the number, and then we'll put the year, and then we'll change the number on the end. So the year, like 1991, would be for property number 1 or unit 1 or whatever, and 1992 would be for unit 2. But in my head, that makes sense because then I'm like, you can always just change it to the year, and then the number at the end always relates to the. No, I don't understand that. But then I take a photo of what we've done, and instant. So it's just like finding that kind of trigger that would allow someone to actually understand and articulate what you're trying to say. Really, isn't it?
Totally. So and I also, you know, I always have this sense of I have no ego, and so when somebody in the room either shares something or explains something better than I've done or adds to it, I think it's brilliant. I was with a team before Christmas, and I got them all to line up, and they're going to share something in the context of what they were doing. And this one lady said, "Oh, would it be best if we all went into a circle?" I went, "That's a brilliant idea." It just didn't go in my head at that time. And I said to her after, to all of them, I said, "Look, this is what it's about. You know, being open to sort of other people's suggestions." And I thought, and I embraced it, and I said, that's great. And we all went in a circle. And so I don't think, because I know it all, and definitely you're staying in line because I say stay in line. No, actually, that's a better idea than mine. And I think that's where I come from, is that human side, no ego. And in some ways, I get to a point with some teams where they almost start facilitating themselves. They almost start doing stuff. And I sort of step away and almost become a grey man because... they're doing it. That's what I'm not there all the time. I'm going to go.
Yeah, their autonomy has kicked in.
Well,
really,
exactly, because they're all adults, and I think that's the difference. I don't come along and go, your children, and I want to teach you about children. No, you're adults. Experiences. I don't know what you've got, and I try to draw that out. And I do lots of webinars. I do lots of stuff with charities as well, sort of governance training and things like that, and working with trustees. And I often get trustees who've got so much experience that can share stuff within a webinar or something. And I just tease it out. Please share it because I want everybody else to hear this. Yeah. I don't know it. I don't know everything. I really don't know everything. I want to.
My skill
is
to feed me.
Yeah, my skill is to facilitate, is to get conversation going. So that's what I love doing.
Okay. Things like you touch on about client expectations. So I'm thinking typical SME gets you in to train a team of 10, for instance, and they just do the one-off day and they go, no one's communicating with each other, blah, 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 and then they expect you to work a miracle in one day. Presumably there's some kind of parameters that you would explain to the business owner that, if these problems have been going on for the last 5 years, it's unlikely I'm going to be able to solve it in one day. I feel like I know a lot of business owners that would expect that of you if they got you in, like almost like that's off my table.
Yeah. He'll sort it all out.
I've chucked £1,000 a day or whatever the fees are, and be done with it, sort of thing, and then and you're going to work some magic.
Yeah. It's a common thing, and it's not just SMEs; it can be big corporates as well. And I often get into that because often when people come to me, they don't always know what they really want or what the problem really is, and so often they'll come to me with, it could be communication, and we dig a bit, and I dig and dig and dig, and I start to unravel what they're trying to say and what their expectations of how that might be sort of solved. Because when I work with a client, I try to co-create. Yeah. So I'll say, this is what we can do. I try and get an understanding of their budget, because obviously, I can come with the gold option or the bronze option, and
we like a bit of gold, silver, bronze.
And so I can give you an idea, and often people go, I don't know. Well, that doesn't help, but I can give you some options. But I do manage expectations, and I do clearly say sometimes, I say, look, I think I can solve this aspect of what you're trying to do in a day, or get some way, and we can measure it by this, or we can do some sort of other psychometric tests, or we can do some surveys before and after type of thing. But if you want to really fix the whole problem, you need to do 2 or 3 days. So I'm very clear and upfront with people of what I can deliver, because I don't want them to go, oh yeah, and then off I go, and they come back and people go, oh, it's a great day, but there's no change. There's got to be a shift, and sometimes I do that by doing, because obviously me coming in for a day is an expensive thing in some ways. Is I do a lot of follow-up sometimes online with the team. So it sort of helps sort of spread some from their budget, but create some momentum and accountability with the team.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's sort of quite important, really, because there are a lot of business owners I know that would expect like a fairly prompt turnaround, and if they didn't see results, they get quite disappointed in it, if you like. Fairly quickly as well, because they're impatient people. They're expecting stuff fast paced and the rest of it. Those are the sort of people you're dealing with. But to crack an inherent kind of bit of rot in the team or whatever it might be referred to it's quite difficult. It's not an overnight process, generally speaking, and it might even mean that some people you need to change the people in the team in order to actually make that successful as well. I think, is it Good to Great where they, in the book, where they refer upon people on the bus or something, isn't it? And making sure there's the right people on the right bus in the right seats before you leave the bus station. And I'm quite a strong believer of that, making sure that you've got a good solid team, because you can't fix it if there's someone at the back who's toxic or something.
No, not at all. But also, I always sometimes I do a challenge to the leader as to how you got to that position. As in, you have responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and just by, and I always...
The bus driver let them on the bus in the
Well,
first
yeah, exactly.
place. Yeah.
And also, you know, you not just get this expert coming in to help you to fix it, actually. And I always try and work with the leader and the whole team.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want a leader telling, well, this team needs fixing. Well, no, you're part of that team, and we need to be part of that sort of journey, really. And so that's really important as well. It's often, you know, in some companies, it's the HR might bring me in, or the CEO, and there's a team, a lower team. And so that can be quite challenging because then you're dealing with, you know, the stakeholder management of expectations here who are paying you.
Yeah.
And then there's people here you're actually doing the stuff with.
Yeah.
And often...
Probably don't realise why you're there in the first place.
Sometimes, yeah. And these people don't always know the real things. I go into the room sometimes and think, oh, this seems very different than what I was told about this team. And so that's always an interesting one. But a lot of that is, for me, is making sure I keep sort of quick accountability and conversations with them and saying, look, you said this. I went into that first session. It was very different to what I've been told.
Yeah.
And in fact, these, I think, are the issues. And I had to do a review of a board of trustees, and I was brought in so I had to do like a report as well, which is, I always feel I hate doing reports on It's a horrible thing. But it was, and they knew I was doing it, and so I had all day with them. We did some surveys beforehand, and then, but it wasn't as bad as I'd been told.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a lot of good stuff in it. It just needed to be more revealed and more built upon. And I obviously my report reflected that.
Yeah.
And they got a copy of the report as well, so it was completely transparent. But that can be quite challenging sometimes.
Yeah, it's good if I was wondering that as well, because it's good if the management team are receptive, especially if a lot of the blame is really stuff that they might have done, or maybe their perception of what's going on and isn't quite the reality. Like we. If you go back to the bus analogy, if you like, and someone has to let those people on the bus in the first place, even if they're in the wrong seat. Yeah. We were guilty of getting people in very quickly when we needed to put bums on the seats on the bus, and then they were the wrong people and not acting quickly enough to get rid of them because they weren't suitable for the role, or they were toxic in the team. So actually you end up with this kind of not dysfunctional family on the bus, and then actually it's your own fault because you're the one that's rushing to get the seats filled and the rest of it, when you're looking at the team going, why don't you all work? Or actually half of it's because you're not acting quick enough. Like we're quite, well, I'd like to think we're quite receptive to feedback here.
I'm sure.
But yeah, I'd imagine some business owners don't always see that that it's their, you know, they're doing in that instance.
And I always say the biggest way you talk about behaviours and how people pick up behaviours and things like that, the biggest impact you have as a leader, or any of us really, is people get affected by role modelling. Role modelling is the most powerful way. The moment you walk into a room, you walk into any room in your business, you're immediately being assessed either subconsciously or consciously in what you say, how you say it, everything. And that influences the mood, influences, the thing called contagion sort of thing, where people, if you come in all bouncy and energized, that will carry. Yeah. But if you come in a little bit, glum and a bit down, that will bring the team down. And I think leaders particularly, don't realise the impact they have. And that sort of, almost self-reflection of what you say, how you treat, and how you treat that person versus when people observe it, subconsciously or unconsciously as well. And so I talk a lot about that sort of behavioural change and how you can make a huge difference. Yeah. And I'm very conscious when I go into the room with a team, because I'm the new entity as well, so I've got to build a relationship very quickly of my role modelling as well. And I'm very open with either my mistakes or the things I was doing a team before Christmas, and I had something in my head I was going to say, based on what somebody had said, and I walked into, and I completely forgot, and I was like, what was that? What? And so do you know when you retrace your steps? Yeah. So I retraced my steps, went back to where I stood, and it came back, and I told them that. I said, look, I completely forgot. I walked back over here, and I remembered, and they were like, so I try and share a little bit of being quite open and try and create a little bit of, that's good to be open. And because in some ways, and it's also good not to know all the answers. I think that sometimes leaders, and I don't know, perhaps if you ever feel this at all, where you feel you need to know the answers to everything, because you don't need
There's
to know
an
that.
Inherent responsibility to be like that because people pull on you from all different directions and you have to make decisions. But you have to remember you're not perfect, and there are people out there that know the answer, and your job is to assemble those people like a band or a team or whatever.
Absolutely.
Effectively, I don't know, I'm not a big football fan, but I'd imagine it's like being the manager, and then you've got the team that are playing. Your job is to make sure those right people, because that guy who's managing the footballers, generally speaking, in my observations, they tend to be an older, more retired-y person, so they don't have the fitness to go out. They don't have the skill set to do what those people are doing on the pitch, but their skill set is to assemble a decent team to be the winning team, essentially. So that's your job as the leader of the business, really, not to necessarily be able to score the goals and do all the things everybody else can do. It's about making sure the right people, bit bus analogy, back to, we've gone full circle, really.
Yeah.
And I think bums on the right seats.
I think it's important, because and I say a lot of things when I do facilitation, sometimes I get to a place where I have a plan what we're doing today, and then as things show up, perhaps slightly different than I expected, I might go, oh, we've got a few options here, and I go, I don't say I don't know what to do next. It's not that. It's more about, we've got some ideas. We've done this, and we need to do some changes here. What do you think? And that brings them all on the journey of getting on the bus of what we're trying to do here, and actually involves them, because then it's them, isn't it? It's not about me, and it's just me being quite open and saying, look, I'm not sure what next. What do you reckon? And I think I'm quite open to that, and I think more leaders need to be a bit more like that and go, look, I'm not entirely sure where we're going with this. Can we have some inputs, and we'll build a plan. But like COVID was obviously a massive thing for it. You know, people had never a clue what they were doing.
Well, I think COVID was a strange time for everybody, but definitely for businesses and teams and stuff. I mean, up to COVID, I don't think we really did any sort of remote work, anything at all. Everyone just came into the office. We were there. I mean, it was a smaller team then, but that didn't really exist. And I remember distinctly, I think 2016-17 time, someone pitching some software to me or something or other. I can't really remember what it was, a product that they wanted to buy, and they wanted to do it over Zoom or something like that. And I just thought, if you can't be bothered to come and see me, I'm not interested. That's so lazy to do that. And then now in my head, I'm like, it's annoying when people want to come and see you.
That's brilliant.
Because you're forced to use the technology, then you suddenly realise how beneficial it is.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, like later today, I've got a Zoom call with a guy, and we're having it on the site that they can't make it, so the Zoom call's on actually at the site, done, and then it's just as good as them being there in theory. So.
Yeah, we've adapted quite well to that, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, yeah. Although I don't think Zoom did so well out of the whole journey. I think they had that boom, and then they didn't really.
Microsoft Teams came along, didn't it? So,
I feel like it's always inevitable that the bigger people always come along, and they kind of iron out the problems that are with things, and then it's done, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So moving on, goal setting, I suppose.
Setting.
You've got within the next year, you're aiming to launch a 3 to 4 leadership program that runs at strategic intervals, allowing you to batch my intensive work periods and create clear boundaries, personal time. I won't read the whole thing because I think people will probably put it down in the descriptions below. But essentially, you want these to be programmed to bring in strong revenue whilst giving you extended periods to spend time with your family. So it's that kind of juggling those peaks and troughs and making sure that you're kind of ironing that out, I suppose, really. So you mentioned your summer and your winter periods where people probably on holiday, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so the aim is to launch a 3 to 4 leadership program. What's that kind of look like? What's that?
Yeah, so it's basically working with 3 or 4 organisations, and so. For me, it's interesting. I got onto the trend, of putting a word for this year. I used to be quite anti those sort of things. Yeah. And I was a little bit like, I did a post yesterday on it on LinkedIn in terms of, and so my word this year is deeper. And so I want to get, deeper friendship relationships, my friends, with my family and everything else, but deeper within organisations. So as much as I, do lots of one-day things, which is fine. I do lots of that, and I'm happy to do that. Towards the end of last year, I started to do more stuff where I go into an organisation and I work with a team over a 6 months period. I might do some team stuff with them. I might do some individual coaching with them. Then I might end up doing another team in that organisation. So I get to know that organisation, I get to know their culture, and I start to become a real partner with them. And that's the idea for me is, I'm not chasing numbers of engagements with clients. It's just going deeper into an organisation and having a greater impact. Because the ultimate thing for me is, my purpose is all about unlocking human potential. And so the more I can do that within a team, obviously has massive impact, but also within leaders. And so having 3 or 4 organisations where I go in and do a number of teams, programs with them, and all I do is always bespoke. It's not off the shelf. A client will come to me with their challenges, they'll come with their outcomes, and I then create a program for them that will match their industry, across all different industries, but also match what they're trying to achieve, and once I understand the team and how that approaches. And so that's, for me, is getting more deeper and more involved with the team. So having those, for me, is this year, it gives me revenue, obviously good revenue, big revenue, but it also gives me, it aligns with my purpose, and it aligns with my lifestyle, and also just feeling I'm getting involved more deeper with an organisation. Yeah.
Okay. So, kind of just to recap that, I suppose, you're looking to get sort of 3 or 4 larger retained clients, I suppose, for a better word.
Yeah.
And then obviously juggle that kind of being time, not necessarily being rich in monetary sense, but have the autonomy to do what you want to do. I suppose from an outsider's point of view, like not just as an inquisitive business person, I suppose the inherent danger of that is with the economy. If you don't get 3 to 4 bigger clients, if they start making cutbacks or something like that, or if you were to lose one. So I guess like if you started and then it wasn't for them and they cut it or something like that. What would it look like for you if you had like maybe a couple of them, but would you then consider doing the like one-to-one coaches? Because I feel like sometimes it's good to have a drip feed of income to back up, because we've had businesses where we're heavily reliant on like half a dozen clients, and then 2 of them pull out, and then you're like, oh my God, we're really struggling now. We have to let a couple of people go or whatever. So that's quite a sort of, I know it's different when you're kind of freelancey sort of level, but it's a danger of any business, isn't it, that you lose like a couple of key clients and that's like half your income gone.
I think I I made that mistake a couple of years ago where I became a bit more reliant on the chunkier stuff. Yeah. And then the chunkier stuff didn't happen.
The fat fell off. Yeah.
Well, remember the Liz Trust sort of.
I do remember.
Budget. It just created some weird stuff going on in the economy. I don't know. I mean, I had a big retained client at the time that just went overnight, and so I suddenly went, oh, and it was quite tough, because then suddenly you're into this like, oh my goodness. And so I do have a number of sort of almost the smaller. And I don't ignore the smaller stuff, because I think it's important to do that. But I suppose the aim is to have the bigger stuff, but also to fill in the cracks and the little bumps in the road. I work with an organisation that gives me lots of smaller stuff, the one-day stuff.
It's like if you lose 1 or 2 of them, it's not as detrimental to losing that bigger client.
Exactly, and also creating this course I'm working with, that again, that gives me a nice chunk as well, which is more controllable as well. So yes, I do have this, and I do one-to-one stuff. I don't just do team stuff. It's just I tend to do a lot of team stuff with that.
I want to dive a little bit into the core stuff, because I think those sort of subscription style models are quite good for you to have regularly recurring income, so you're not fighting for it month on month with the drip feed of clients or whatever. So what's that kind of, I mean, where are you sort of at with that, and how likely is that gonna? I think to me, I like those sort of things where it's like it's a one-time bunch of effort, and then you're getting, I mean, obviously you top it up and make it fresh, but
Yeah.
the bulk of the work's done at the start, and then you've got some sort of drip feed of income coming in where people have like logged on, signed up for a recurring, membership or something or other to online coaching of some nature.
Yeah, I mean, I do, to a certain extent that happens within organisation. I get the sort of, repeat, as it were.
Yeah.
I'll do 6 sessions with a leader or private clients, and then it might be a pause, and then they'll repeat again. I have looked at the whole subscription side of things and how you do that. For me, it doesn't work because it's a bit too automated.
It's a crowded space.
It's crowded space, but also it doesn't align with who I am or how I operate. I did launch like a few years ago some online courses with Udemy. Isn't it Udemy? But again, they did okay, and I thought, you always think this is going to be my retirement plan. Something. It doesn't quite work like that way.
I'm wondering. I know it doesn't align with your views, and I'm guessing that is because it's much more kind of one-on-one personalness that you're giving to that seminar group, whatever, as opposed to like a training course, which is very generic, isn't it? You're giving kind of just generic coaching advice. Would it be possible if you perhaps found a way of maybe filming or capturing what you've done on that course and then allowing them to kind of log in as a reminders, almost like I just wonder if there's a way of utilising, like you say you do like a 3-day training course with a team, and then you film it all, and then maybe you get AI to edit it or something into snippets, and then they can pay like a very small fee, like a couple of pounds a month or something like that to access that footage over and over again, so that the management team go, look, we might not get you in again because we feel the team's good, but every now and then when they slip, we can be like, can you just do this and just remind yourselves of all the training courses. And a lot of business will be like, that's an extra bonus added on, and then you've got a few quid, and times that by 100 or so, then you've got a recurring revenue stream coming in, and it's much more bespoke to that particular business rather than a generic training course.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea in terms of taking work with the client already and then sort of monetizing that on a longer term and creating some, I suppose, added value stuff that doesn't involve me. It involves a video of me or
something capturing that. So it's no extra time because it's being done in real time when you're doing the course, and then obviously there'll be some kind of back end stuff, but you don't have to produce that if they're not willing to sign up for it. They say, oh yeah, we'll pay you $4.99 a month or whatever, just so we've got access to it all, and then you just leave that running, and then it's a nice, it can present it quite well. Log in. Here's like the key things that we touched on in the day's training and the rest of it.
Yeah, it's a good sort of follow up, and I say not quite a low value to them, but
low value to them, but it'll make them feel like they've continuously got value for money out of it. They've paid you, I don't know what your fees are, but £1,000 to come and do the day's training, and then you've got this for a £5 a month access for all the staff continuously to it. I think that might be a good way of like capitalising on a continuous revenue stream. Maybe.
No, I mean I've created last year. I created because I got a whole thing about team resilience. So I created a team resilience psychometric test. Yeah, where a team does it, and at the moment it's a bit more manually done. The team does it, and then I use that as a way of then going in and we do a whole workshop based on what the team has come up with, what the gaps are basically. But it's something I could probably, with AI, and I know somebody who can do it, shift that to more of they could go and do it themselves, give them a report, and they pay X, Y, Z or whatever. Yeah. So it's a way of trying to, I suppose, give them something that I don't have to be involved in, basically.
I'm thinking all the stuff you can do that is a drip feed of recurring income that doesn't require your constant time for money exchange, which is what the training courses do. That will help with the peaks and troughs. It'll also give you back that time as well. So then if these 3 or 4, if one drops out and you're like, well, I've always got my base, £1,000 a month coming in out of my $4.99s or whatever it might be, that you've always got that to rely upon. And then at least in the summer months, you've got some income coming in, then, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's a good idea.
Yeah, and I don't think that would take that. I mean, it'd take a lot of time to get it set up in the first place, but ongoing, it's like you're capturing that most of that data and information when you're already there doing the course. You just need to have some indication that they're going to actually sign up to it at the end.
Well, it could come part of the package, as it were. They almost extend.
And you've got 6 months free access, and then after that it's $4.99 or something.
Yes, exactly.
Or
But no, there's probably a way of monetising that, definitely. Yeah. No,
okay.
Good idea.
So, longer term, 3 to 5 years, I think maybe we touched on some of these things. So, envisage having a perfected a business rhythm that gives me both impact and freedom. I want to run several highly regarded leadership programs, perhaps 4 to 6 per year, that are financially rewarding. Your neuroscience book, not nucleus, sorry, book on the team resilience will be published. Where we at with the book?
Well, I've already launched a book 18 months ago. That was all about building resilient teams, called Weathering the Storm. I forgot to bring a copy for you today. I'll send you a copy.
Okay.
And so what I've done...
Signed, I hope.
Well, I can come and sign it because it'll come from Amazon.
Okay.
When I launched, I did that on the back of my research I did with my psychology degree, my master's psychology. And so over the last 18 months, I've got more into the whole world of neuroscience and started to understand more of that. And so the plan, probably back end of this year, I hope my wife is not listening to me because she had to bear with me while I was writing the last one.
Yeah.
But to just go a little bit deeper on that and because the reason why I wrote the book, and it wasn't just a marketing tool, even though it is a great marketing tool, is that when I did my studies on research on team resilience, part of my psychology masters, is there wasn't much literature out there.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'd bring my own experience with my clients, my own leadership experience, but also from my sort of studies as well. And what I found now, also from a neuroscience point of view, that it's all very individual neuroscience stuff. We have lots of podcasts, Huberman Lab and all things like that. And it's really good, but I want to bring it to more of a team context and from a team resilience point of view. And so I've got already a plan, as in what I'd write. I just got to write the thing.
Yeah.
And so probably back end of this year. And it's just, for me, it's element of slightly a passion project, but also I think it's something that would further create credibility and step me up even more so in terms of my expertise in helping teams build resilience from a neuroscience point of view. Because the more stuff I do, and all the stuff I do is all research backed and science backed. I don't just do woo-woo stuff. For example, I talk about gratitude. That years ago almost felt a bit of woo-woo stuff, but actually gratitude, there's some science behind it. Science, the fact that if you do it, you increase dopamine, serotonin, and everything else. And so there's lots of stuff I talk about is science, and I want to bring that into the team as well. Because people hear that and they go, oh, it makes sense. They engage with it better. So that's the plan. End of this year. But
okay.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking back to our bolt-on client login area
Oh,
or whatever. Your book is downloadable through that as well, as part of that package. As PDF or hard copy for whatever it sells on Amazon or somewhere. Because then that's like another thing to sell, isn't it? And then of course, if they're always feel like they're getting good value for money out of it.
Yeah, no. I mean, sometimes part of my engagement is the book comes with it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's depending because
I'm thinking from a staff level, if they log in and then they can be like, oh, there's a PDF of the book that I can download and read in my own time, or I can order it if I want to.
Yeah, and I've thought about breaking that book into little more smaller bits as well to try and think about that.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
To make people sort of go engage with it in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So I guess the whole theme is to maybe get it to a point where you've got the decent amount of income, a bit more automation to some of the income as well, so that then you can pick and choose your time essentially. Summer holidays and things and stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's a general theme towards that, and then you've got on your kind of longer term plans in the 10 years, you want to be completely autonomy over your time, and then see yourself delivering the 3 to 4 flagship programs per year. I guess, how will you continuously attract, because you're 3 to 4 leadership, so let's say they do a 6-month stint with you, like 3 or 4 of them, and then I don't know, you're working with senior team at Waitrose, Tesco's or something, and then they go, thanks for that, that's brilliant, we'll let you know in a few years' time when we want another one. Where would you get the next crop of people to come in the following year?
It's a mixture, because we know getting a client in itself is quite a challenge. And so for me, my strategy, based on the whole being deeper, is to get within an organisation and start to, sounds like a war thing, infiltrates. But no, and
you want a big organisation like Waitrose, where you're dealing with multiple
I do
teams.
deal with, from the, a team of 15 sort of SMEs through to a 300 or 400 million pound businesses. So I do scale it, but go into a bigger organisation, you can, and it's a bit like I would do at Tesco when I was selling to Tesco. Instead of just going to the buyer, I'd always encourage my team, network with the technical, network with the trader, and do as much moving around as you can. So much so, almost spend because Tesco head office has a coster in their reception. And so sometimes trying to get access to people, it can be quite challenging in Tesco. I used to park myself at Tesco's Costa all day with my laptop, and I'd see people, and so you get to know people, network. And so in the same way, as I get into an organisation and do some good stuff, get some good results, then I would then think about other ways of managing that and replicating that. So that's one way, but then obviously through networking, in terms of that is quite, in terms of building that. My podcast itself, I get, some guests on there who are from big organisations, small organisations. Again, that's been a lot of my guests, not a lot, some of my guests have become clients, or they recommend me or bring me in. And so, those are the ways I've used. And LinkedIn has become, it's a mixture of LinkedIn, it's a tricky old thing, but it does create opportunities. I sometimes get people just randomly connecting with me. I got some work with the Metropolitan Police that came through LinkedIn. Somebody connected with me, liked what I did. We had a call, and then suddenly, can you do some stuff on personal resilience? I did 4 webinars with their CRD team. And so those sort of things happen, and also the whole nurturing people as well through LinkedIn.
Yeah, you never know where those leads are going to come from. You speak to someone and then they do that, or you turn up at an event thinking it's going to be one thing and it's not, and it's another thing. So, I think LinkedIn's probably a very powerful tool for your business, because it's literally its target market, really, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, right. Challenges.
Yes.
So you got your number one challenge. My biggest challenge is designing business systems and boundaries that protect my time while maintaining financial stability. Constant pressure to say yes to opportunities, take on more clients, and expand the ways would consume more hours. I need to become comfortable in saying no, charging premium prices, and reflecting. Is it a bit of kind of do you get the imposter syndrome a little bit sometimes when you're pricing, or is that not really
a few years ago I did. And I obviously I'm appropriate to the pricing of the organisation. I don't, bigger corporate, they expect
it to be expensive, but they expect value for money.
And I'm not the most expensive in the context of corporate, which is fine. But I manage that accordingly to, when I work with a charity through to a 300 million pound business, there'll be a bit of scaling, but I've got much better with that. And I think, as anybody, pricing is always a bit of those a little gulp at first. And when they just go, okay, you're thinking, I could have charged more, or that. But it's just, that's a learning thing. But no, I think for me, the challenge is not just, I think when you first set out, you just say yes.
You want money in the till, basically.
And so I'm being a bit more, targeted who I'm focusing on and what I'm doing and how I'm going about that. in terms of the organisation I want to work with. So I've been quite intentional about that. And then making sure that I don't just say yes. Or actually, I had a client before, probably in September, October time, I set a price, and that's what I was comfortable with. I was happy with that, and they went, "Oh no, we can't afford that," and we just walked away. It's fine. There's no problem with that. I haven't got a problem with that. But years ago, I might be going, "Oh, okay, I'll take off whatever, a few £100, but now I don't. And I'm also thinking more about that my own value is actually when I go into it and work with the team over 6 months, the impact on a big business. If I just get them to shift by just 1% of their revenue on 100 million, that's £1 million. That's probably £200,000 or £300,000 in profit, and all I'm charging is this. Actually, and I do lots of those conversations with the clients now and talk about impacts and how we measure impacts. Sometimes you can't always measure it. I often do lots of surveys beforehand. So the team will do a survey. It gives me insight about the team, but also we do that afterwards. And then I can show the sponsor, they were these aspects, they were whatever, 50, 60%. And now they're more like 78, whatever it is. There's a shift, and that's really quite tangible. So I'm doing a lot more of that, so seeing the value. But also trying to understand, if I work with a sales team, I'm working with a sales team next week actually, up in Manchester. If I do stuff, I want to say, how can we measure the impact of if I've done stuff for you, has there been a shift? It's obviously all about me, obviously it's the team, it's the organisation, but is there something we can attribute? And they go, oh, well, we could look at this, look at that. And even you get a few £100,000 shift, that's worth it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think those bigger companies are much more need something tangible or whatever to review and see the cost benefit analysis of things, aren't they?
So,
it's good to be able to produce that for them. So I guess in terms of saying no to people, I think we've had that. When I first went out on my own, I took on everybody. Was it you're going to pay me 50p? Right, we'll have it.
Yeah, totally.
Just because you need money in the till, you got to pay wages and all the rest of it. But as time goes by, I don't know if you've got this, but legacy clients, ones that maybe are used to paying a much lower fee when they come to you, and then you then suddenly thinking, well, actually, I'm almost doing that like half price compared to what I'm doing it for somebody else. That journey is quite difficult to go through. So if you have to go through that, my advice or an experience of it was that the people that really like you and see the value in you will always pay what you're asking to pay because they'll see the value. The ones that just came to you because you were cheaper than everybody else, probably not the clients that you want anyway, because they're money driven and they probably don't really care too much about the result. They're more worried about what the bottom line is going to be. So, and it is no different to us. We're managing people's properties. Some of them were like, we'll go super cheap and we don't really care if you do a good job, but we need someone to manage it. So we've got someone to push the blame onto, as opposed to another client who would be like, no, we want our asset really looked after really well. So we're happy to pay a little bit more for it because you've proven yourself essentially. So that legacy client issue.
Yeah, when you've had a client who then keeps repeat, which is great, and there's a loyalty there, isn't there? And there's something thinking, well, now the pricing is very different to what I need. It's having those conversations, and there will be at some point conversations I will be having with some of my clients that longer term who I need to shift. And I've been doing that slowly in sort of redoing the package as well, or redoing how we deliver stuff, and then bringing in the pricing slightly differently. So it's lost a little bit in the
incremental increases that are a little harder to spot. But also, you do something like, say you're charging 200 and that customer's paying 100, so they're half the price of everybody else. You just increase it by 10-15% over a 6-year period. It's back at maybe 185, so they're still getting a discount off the current rate, but it's nowhere near the volume of discount they were previously getting, but they haven't kind of had that one big time hike going up.
But I will see myself probably, and it will be another challenge really, is over the next probably couple of years where I will probably start to say no to those.
Yeah.
Or I'll go, based on things have changed, and if they're not willing to pay the chunk.
Yeah,
and do
I
it
think
in a
you'll
way
find
that's
the ones that are decent to you will stay.
Exactly, and if somebody don't want it, that's fine. Do it in a way that's work well together and have a conversation about it. Definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Second biggest challenge is managing client and organisational expectations around your availability. Many organisations expect coaches and consultants to be available pretty much straight away. Response to urgent requests or willingness to accommodate their schedule preferences. I need to establish clear boundaries. I guess that is quite common with any sort of consultancy role where you're almost, as a business, it's very easy to think of them like an extension of staff, and then they're please, you need to come over this afternoon, and you're like, well, I've got 4 days of training on this. I guess is that like you're envisaging that being a problem, or it is a problem already?
It has been, and I think when I start to work with an organisation and do a number of things with them, there's an expectation that you're not staff, but you're paying you a lot, and you're around. And it's also managing the boundary of, is that the scope of what we had agreed on this?
Yeah.
Because when you're in an organisation and you're doing this team and that team and doing some exec coaching with these individuals and everything else, and they're paying you obviously money for all that, they think, oh, can you just do this? Can you just do this? And it's managing that. Well, actually, no, that's not part of the scope of what you're paying. Without being a bit of an arse about it. You know what I mean? And there's elements of grace, elements of, that's part of how it is sometimes. But yes, and I think sometimes that expectation, and I think when you get locked into a bigger organisation or a long-term thing, is that boundary, and I think
it gets blurred.
It does get blurred, and obviously you get a good relationship, and it becomes quite easygoing, and that's really good. But actually, there's still a boundary of. I had one client. It was a funny thing before Christmas where I was been working one-to-one with them, and. We had a little joke about, so this is your last session with us, if you want to go through the company, we'll get some more. That's not a problem. And so I have to pay to speak to you then. I went, yeah, you do really. And we did it in a little joking way, and he was being jokey about it. But I said, that's the reality, that's my job. You pay to speak to me. It sounds a bit, I said,
I know. You wouldn't call the builder in and expect them to keep coming just because they came a few times.
Well, exactly, But no, he wasn't doing that way. He's just tongue-in-cheek, really. But I think people sometimes, when you build a relationship with people, think, oh, just to do this. And also, I had a client where they didn't tell me, weren't turning up. So I got onto the call, and I have a policy, usually 24 hours notice. Unless something generally came up, and
it's flexibleness to it.
Your wife was ill, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. But he said, oh, no, I forgot to tell you, this came up, that came up. I said, well, you forfeit that session. He was like, really? I went, yeah, you do. It's part of the thing. And he didn't like it, but that's a boundary, and it's a business boundary. Otherwise, it's my time. I was there ready, so basically my time's gone.
It's not. I think though you have to have some boundaries to those things and the flexibility as well. My wife's a counsellor. She deals with people with gambling addictions, and she has a similar policy where if you give her some reasonable excuse, or you're not the repeat offender or whatever, there's some flexibility to it. Or sometimes she'll be like, look, I'll split the fee half and half, or you've lost that session, or I'll give you half an hour next time or something instead of a full hour. So, but you have to have some boundaries to it and make those decisions. Otherwise, people just take the mickey, and they extend your good nature.
Absolutely.
Yes. Perfect. Right. And then the third thing is overcoming my own conditioning and potential guilt that comes with prioritizing personal time with being work obsessed culture. Having spent 20 years in demanding corporate roles, there is an integrated pattern of equating busyness with value and long hours with commitment. So I think there's a lot of people suffer with that, including myself.
Well, it's this whole concept, isn't it, about people think you should scale. Everything's about scaling, growing, building, and I've done that with many businesses in the corporate world, and that's been the thing you do, What's the budget target for next year? You've got to keep growing, and that's fine. It's okay with that. But actually, for me, my mindset is about more scaling my time with my family. I've got a daughter who lives in Canada. I've got a grandson, or I have 2 grandsons this year. And so for me, he's having the opportunity to go out there, a week at ideally twice a year if I can see her. That for me is more beneficial to me rather than just scaling my business. So it's scaling my opportunity to do stuff with family and friends and everything else without the feeling of that guilt where you think, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. December was, I was busy. I didn't have a lot going on. I had a few engagements going on, but I didn't have loads. And I always feel like, oh, I should be doing something.
Should be doing something.
And I did some planning for this year, but I'd already, by beginning of December, my Q1, as in Q1 26, was already set up.
Yeah.
I didn't need to think about, don't have to worry.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've got to think about going forward, clearly, and I'm not complacent, but I didn't have to worry.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'd feel that sense of, oh no, I've got to, and even though I've come out of corporate for a while, you still get into that groove of wanting to do it and push through and grow. And obviously, I want to grow to a certain extent, but I'm not all about getting massive. It's not about. I could go through the associate model. I've tried that a little before. That's another opportunity as well, where you get associates,
like franchising it.
Or get people to do stuff, and they get paid X, and I get the little bit on top.
It's hard to replicate the you of that.
It is. I mean, it can work in the coaching world because sometimes I may, I've looked at where I may need another person to help me on a day. If we're doing a large team and stuff like that, you need a little bit more support. Or and it may be the model as I go forward when I get into an organisation, I'm doing 3 or 4 teams in that organisation, and I go, actually, I'm going to get this other person to come in and to help me and support me, but I'm in with them as well. So that's more one way to do it.
Future-proofing in terms of getting your customers to, pay you a small subscription, so that you're not kind of obsessing or chasing those 3-4 big clients. If one of them loses, it's going to be very difficult for you to hold on to that feeling of, oh, I've got to work extra hours, I've got to do this thing, I've got to chase this stuff, because you'll need that missing piece of income. And that will detract away from potentially, that kind of time split that you're after. So I do think that kind of, as much as that as you can feed in, that kind of drip feed of income will allow you to have that stable base to prevent you defaulting down on that particular hurdle.
No, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I think it's been really great talking to you, and quite interesting, all this sort of stuff, really. I do like the coaching model and the psychology and all the rest of it and that sort of things. And I do think that focusing on the kind of drip feed of income, making sure that your pricing and the stuff that we talked about will be key to you getting to that kind of having the time off that you want and the business stability, if you like. It is always inherently dangerous having like a handful of big customers. So that will help you get those kind of peaks and troughs or hurdles that you come across, and really saying no to people as well. And there's no harm in saying no. Or like telling them their price has got to come. The legacy clients are difficult, but I'm sure that if they see their value in there, they will stick around. So I think we've kind of covered off all the points that were in your bit there. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about or ask me at all whilst we're here.
No. Just what's your perspective on developing people and teams and everything else in your organisation?
Well, I'm a strong believer that if you've got a good team, you have a good business. So you kind of, they are the ambassadors for your business. They're the people going out meeting your customers and the rest of it and all that kind of stuff. And even when you're a small business and you're the owner is the ambassador, eventually you may grow, or hopefully you grow, and then your team become the ambassadors, whether they're serving coffee or they're doing sales teams or whatever. They're the people that the customers are meeting. So to have a really solid team around you, you can't do what you need to do as a business owner if they're not doing their job. They make the possible and they get on with it, and you go away and figure out what the impossible is, so you make that possible for them to do their job, basically. I think investing in the team, making sure they're happy, their work environment. Like here we have a lot of things like stand-up desks, and we do dual screens. We make sure people have got breaks. We have, we do staff outings. We do one-to-ones with the staff, all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't matter whether you're in a coffee shop or an office or you work on a building site. You've got to look after people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And spot those toxic cultures as well. That's like we've been burnt a lot into that over the last 15 years, where you got one person in and they're just not a good fit, and they really do infect like a cancer throughout the rest of the team. So getting rid of them quickly. Someone said to me, it's better to have a hole in your business than an arsehole in your business. And I've held on to that phrase for a long time, because I think sometimes you just want bums on seats, and then you take the wrong bums on seats.
Yes, there's a danger of that, isn't it? Particularly when you're struggling to get talents.
Yeah,
or good talents, as it were.
Exactly. Yeah. Just is it breathing? Yeah, you can come and work here. It's not a good attitude.
No, it's not. Having a bad hire is a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess that's my kind of take on teams, if you like, and coaching for them and the rest of it. I mean, Hayley, my PA's had some executive one-on-one coaching. We've had people come and do training days. Obviously, you've got the normal training courses, which are legislation, but we have had the kind of team building where they all have to do exercises and the rest of it and things like that. So,
excellent. Good to hear.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you for the conversation. Really enjoyed this.
No problem at all. Well, it'd be good to see where you're at in a sort of year or two's time.
Yeah.
Great to have you back on, and good luck with everything. And I hope that kind of subscription-y model kind of materialises, because I really think that would assist with maintaining that kind of divide between the personal time and the business. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Cheers, Matthew.
Brilliant. Thank you, mate.